The Office of the United Nations Secretary General has asked members of the Security Council to take a stand against the violence currently happening in the DRC. The United Nations Security Council is currently holding a briefing on the situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. France requested the meeting following a request from Kinshasa, calling for an urgent public session to discuss the escalating security situation in eastern DRC. The briefing comes after significant military advances M23 rebel group in North Kivu province. This includes the capture of additional territories such as Minova and the siege of Goma. Addressing the briefing, Bintou Keita, the special representative of the Secretary General in the DRC, says drastic action needs to be taken. And for more, we're now joined by the Africa Defence Review Director, Darren Olivier. Darren, thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. The escalation that we've seen towards the end of the week on Thursday and Friday, where M23 rebels made their advancements, specifically towards Goma, where 9 South African Defence Force members were killed who were stationed there, is one that has been long coming. The Security Council right now is in session, and Bintou Keita had mentioned the conversation, or at least introduced the thought of potentially sanctioning Rwanda and other state actors that support the M23 rebels. What are the chances that sanctions or a serious conversation on sanctions could lead to de-escalation in northern and eastern DRC?
Good afternoon. I think there's still some hope and possibility that those kinds of sanctions will result in a change. If we saw back in 2013, when M23 also had a very substantial assault and at one point even took over Goma, the moment there was pressure financially on Rwanda to step back, that resulted in them pulling back some support from M23 and enabling a bit more of an easier to defeat group. This time around, M23 is much better equipped, much better supported, and Rwanda is clearly bolder. I think it's very clear that Kigali feels that it won't see consequences from this. So anything in that line in terms of sanctions is similar would, I think, come as enough of a shock to the regime there to cause some rethinking and perhaps a pullback. We can't be sure of this, though. That's all we can hope for. But otherwise, yes, the situation remains precarious.
There's been a consideration in that Security Council engagement that's currently underway of what the impact and effect of the withdrawal of Monusco at the request of the DRC has been, specifically in South Kivu, where we had, adjacent to North Kivu, of course, where we had seen escalations take place over the last couple of days. Is it a good idea for Monusco to continue withdrawing gradually from the DRC, leaving, of course, the SADC mission as the single operator for peacekeeping over there, or should the council reconsider its position on that?
I think it's very clear that the withdrawal of Monusco was premature, that the DRC government was a bit overconfident in the reforms and additional equipment it had been providing to the FARDC, that's its military. And clearly the withdrawal from South Kivu is one of the factors that allowed for M23 to advance as fast as it did. From what I can tell, there has definitely been a change of plans. The withdrawal from North Kivu has been put on hold indefinitely. The DRC government is now no longer pushing for withdrawal. So I do expect we'll see Monusco being around for some time still. The question, of course, will be what kind of budgets will be available to it, what kind of support will it have, because Monusco itself has also shrunk not only in terms of personnel, but in terms of the equipment it has available to it. So, for example, it used to have Mi-24s and Royflogs. It now has neither. So it's not only a matter of will they withdraw, it's a matter of will they be given the right equipment necessary to regain some level of control as they once had. So I wouldn't expect to see a withdrawal just yet.
Yeah, the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations in the United Nations Security Council, Jean-Pierre Lecruz, had reflected on the territorial integrity of the DRC, having said that it's a violation of international law for its sovereignty to be violated, and that M23 is engaged in that. M23, of course, is a non-state actor and doesn't represent the interest, or at least what it's supposed to be is not to represent the interest of any state actor in this instance. Surreptitiously, the allegation is that Rwanda is a state actor that is acting through the proxy of the M23 rebels. Is this surreptitiously saying and perhaps potentially making the case that Rwanda is violating the sovereignty of the DRC, of course, which is an international law violation and could draw on the ICC to issue warrants of arrest?
Absolutely. regardless of what the capacity is of the government of the DRC, and clearly they have issues with control over their territory. That does not give the rights or the legal backing to do what is being done here with M23 and with Rwandan support for it. Rwanda does deny it supports M23, but we have enough evidence, including in UN group of expert reports, showing clear evidence of support, and even the presence of Rwandan forces within the DRC, including the stationing of surface-to-air missiles, for one. So this is clearly more than just a non-state actor. This is really a proxy war being fought between Rwanda and the DRC, becoming more and more actively involved. There are increasing reports of even more troops crossing the border. So at this stage, really, I do think we're looking at the possibility, or it should be at least, of an ICC referral.
Yeah. The Undersecretary for Peace Operations had also, or at least rather the Special Representative for the General Secretary in the DRC, Bintou Keita, had called for a tripartite special summit on the DRC, being led, of course, by Angola as it begins to prepare to host the SADC summit later on this year. Of course, Angola also leading conversations on peace and stability for the DRC on behalf of SADC. This is all to say that there must be a political solution. Is a political solution at all possible, or will the solution only come through force and military interventions?
There has to be a solution politically, because there is no military solution. That's been clear for many years now. Both Monusco, the DRC's own forces, and SAMI DRC haven't been able to really create much of a change here in terms of, changing the facts on the ground. There's only so much you can do to resolve the situation militarily. The military option only provides the space for which you then fill with diplomatic efforts. Clearly, the approach taken so far is not working, both diplomatically and militarily. So there has to be a rethink and a new approach that adds much more pressure onto Rwanda to avoid backing groups like M23, while also putting the pressure on the DRC government to address its own issues and the issues that still cause conflict between it and Rwanda. This has to, I think, become a major priority now, because if not handled, this has all the possibility of spiraling into a regional war the same way it did back in the late 90s. But yes, there certainly is no military solution only. And for one, South Africa does not have really much more consent. What it has there is pretty much the extent of its capacity. So, where would more force come from? Sure, there are other countries in SADC who could contribute, but even then, we are at certain limitations here. And of course, Rwanda and M23 are, right next door. They have the advantage of very short supply lines.
Yeah.
So this will always be, I think, a very challenging fight militarily.
Yeah. Darren Olivier, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Really do appreciate it. Darren Olivier is with the African Defence Review, and is the director there. We continue to bring you your latest coverage on the other side of this break.